Welcome to the podcast series Near-Death Experiences and Life Stories, a podcast that explores the borderline between this world and the next. My name is Paul Bridgewater, and with me I have Marzcia Techau. Marzcia is a qualified biologist and also a clairvoyant counsellor, and both the natural sciences and the spiritual are an integral part of her book. Marzcia, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, as you have introduced, I'm both a biologist and also very much interested in the spiritual world, and it has been a big part of my life since I was in my 20, and then really much when I was 30. So for the last more than 20 years, I've been working with healing, mediumship, teaching spiritual subjects and spiritual development in students. So this mixture between the natural science and the spirituality has always been a very big part of me, and I think that's very interesting because it gives me different views on everything. It's like it gives me a different view about nature and nature science, and it gives me also a possibility to try to explain how the spiritual world works and how healing works, because I see it in a biology context as well. So that's a part of it, and besides that, I'm a highly sensitive person, so I've had a lot of experiences with sensing other people when I was kid and up till now. So I have a very intense sensory system that also is one of the reasons that I have this connection with the healing, the divine and the spirit world.
When working within the natural sciences, then there's often a drive towards objectivity, whereas in spiritual matters one often has to rely on the first-person perspective. And sometimes the interface between the two is quite difficult to work out, because the subjective is automatically ruled out of natural sciences. So when you say the two fields complement each other, how do they complement each other?
The way I see it is that it complements each other in the way that we're actually living, and in my opinion, we have a soul, and this soul is a big part of our life energy, our life force, and also the qualities that we come to this life with. So in that way, our soul have to cooperate with our body and our sensory system. So when I go into in that way, our sensory system is designed to combine with like emotions and how an emotion in a room is, or if it's a danger place or it's a calm and secure place. And in that way, our sensory system is a biologic thing, but the spiritual matter is more like a consciousness. But our body is designed to be in contact with consciousness because we have a consciousness. So in that way, if I look at in a biological way, there is a connection. And if I look at it in science, what I have been doing when I was still a part of the university, because I had a job at the university as well as a research assistant, and there we were in a big research study that was multidisciplinary. So we had a lot of different disciplines working together. So I had a part of the physical part, but we also worked with psychologists that work with the more emotional and mind part. And when we do this mixture of different disciplines, it's much easier to find the effect of healing or the spiritual matter. And now also when we are starting to investigate more about how people are.
Your book describes 4 levels of being, planes I think you call them, the body, the mind, the emotions and the soul. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, I have divided into to 4 planes, as you talk about. So I have the physical plan, the mental plan, the emotional plan, and the soul plan. In that way, I have tried to work with all the different levels that our body has to be, our whole person has to be in some kind of balance between those 4 plans. Because your thought is one thing, your emotions in another, and your body is a third. But the soul is actually a part that is connected with everything. The body and the soul is connected, the body and the mind is connected, or the mental plan and the emotional plan. So the soul is somehow an all over or underlying, for me, divine consciousness that support the body, the thoughts and the emotions. But if you lack the contact with your soul, you actually have a problem with feeling the essence of you, or your intuition, or you have, for me, it's like when you have a near-death experience, it's like you can still see a lot of different things that happens around you. Some people report that they have seen nurses come running when they were actually dead, and they could also explain other things that I have experienced. But then they also experience, many explains it like a peaceful place with light or contact with the spirit world. It could be angels, it could be a deceased relative. And in that way, they somehow lose the contact with the physical body, but start to orientate into the spiritual realm. And when they then, because it's a near-death experience, return to the body starts to feel alive again, or starts to function again. And in that, I see it more like that the soul actually comes with our life energy. So your life energy is connected to the soul, and the less you have contact with your soul, the less you actually have contact with a big amount of your life energy. So when I work with combining soul, body, emotions and thoughts, it's more like giving the best possibility to connect with your life force and your potential that's within your soul. And in that way, when you work with those 4 plans and they are connected, you have the best possibility to have access to your potentials, your skills and your life force. And you also have the best connection to the divine, the spirit world or divine, or also this deeper feeling and contact to yourself and your life.
It can sound a bit complicated when one thinks about aligning the body and the mind and emotions and then one's soul. I mean, it could sound a bit like a jigsaw puzzle, but I imagine that that's not the case. Can you give an example of how the 4 planes work together?
Of course, it sounds a little like a puzzle, but actually it's quite simple, because what I like with the soul is that when you do what you're good at and you do what you like to do, that makes you happy. And when you are feeling good, like just walking in the forest or be with the one you love, it's like there the soul is a very big part of you and everything's aligned there. So if you think it in that way, that when you do something where you feel relaxed, happy, it's meaningful for you, you feel this inner drive within yourself or calling. Much of that is actually connected with your soul, and when you live out these parts of you, it's like it's getting normal for your body to react on the soul, and your mind to follow the soul, and your emotions to be connected with the soul. So it's not like, well, this only little bit moment in your life that is all right. It's like, keep it simple. When you enjoy yourself, when it's a simple life, somehow it could be just walking like I said before, in the nature and just feel this somehow bigger connection with everything. In that moment, your soul and your mind and your body and your emotions are aligned. It could also be if you are an artist and you are really deep into this creativity. Everything else in the world it's so far away. You're just so much in contact with this place within yourself where you are creating. There you are in contact with your soul, your body, your mind. Everything's aligned. Everything's aligned there. And in that way, when you are holding your child for the first time or your grandchild, it's also really this deep love where the soul is the most, the biggest part somehow. It's that expression that comes out from your heart, from your inner being, and just radiates out from you.
Your closing remark here leads to another question which I've often wondered about, the relationship between love from the divine and love to others. I interviewed somebody who had a near-death experience, and he said that when he came back from the experience, he was so full of it that he had difficulty connecting with the person he was next to. When you speak of the soul's importance, then you also highlight individual freedom and happiness. But when it comes to a mother and child or a grandchild, then there's something other. Or how do you explain, or how can one understand the relationship between the two?
I see it in a part like a drop of water. The water is water. It could be a drop, but it could also be connected with the big sea and be a part of the big sea. So in that way, I feel the soul is working at the same way. You have a part of you is your soul that has a more individual context, but it's also a big part of something else. So your soul are connected with the divine, like your soul is one with oneness, but you have also the possibility from your soul to be some kind of oneness or very good togetherness with another person. So when you from your soul connect with another person's soul, this very old connectedness of just knowing each other or feeling each other in some very deep way connected, that's the same way I see the drop of water going into the water and being a part of the water, but you could also take a drop of water out of the water. So in that way we can do both, but we are all connected to the same divine source, but we have different qualities. And the qualities, as I see it, is a complementary thing where we actually, when we then connect, it gets into a connection where these qualities can create something bigger than we can do by ourselves. So the drop of water is a good example of the soul. You have your own soul, but it can connect with, the souls of others or the divine energy or the presence of God. It's like you have this quality within you to be connected, but also to be yourself.
In your book, you talk about epigenetic healing. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it, but could you say something more about that?
Yeah, it's like I call it epigenetic healing or epigenetic transferred. It could be traumas from generation. It's like a generational transferred issue or theme. But it could also be, if we look at it in a positive way, we could also see it as good qualities from your lineage that you inherit and you can connect with and actually develop even more. So the epigenetic is like you have the genes where you have some genes from your father, some from your mother, and then you have a little something that's just yours, because there is a part of the process where in the chromosomes where you actually have something that's only yours. So you are part of your mother, part of your father, but you also have your own context of genes that's totally yours. So in that way, some of the traumas from your lineage can be transferred via the genes, and the genes are. It's like it could be a feeling of like some of the examples I use is that a great tip grandfather, very great grandfather out there had experienced that it wasn't possible for him to get the woman he loved because he was just a farmer, and of course he fell in love with the queen's daughter or the princess or something like that, and this love wasn't possible at that time, and in that way the feeling of love is not possible could be transferred through generations and be a part of how your genes are expressed right now in this life, and that could make a lot of problems in trusting in love and succeeding in love. But there could also be genes from another part of the family that actually, where your great grandmother on mother's side had experienced a very good family life. Everything was happy and the child survived, all the children, because at that time they got a lot of children. So you have both possibilities. You have genes that say, yes, everything is going to be good and happy family, and another set of genes that said, oh, no, it will never happen. And depending on what experiences you have had in your life, the if I call it the bad gene expression can follow you, and somehow you continue to go into this trauma that love is not for you. But in epigenetic healing, I use the contact to the spirit world, to your ancestors. So in that way, the unlucky one on your father's side that didn't get the princess, and the lucky one on mother's side that really had a good family life, they can come together and actually help to heal the trauma that's in you, transferred from your lineage. And in that way, that the happy woman helps the unhappy man on ancestor side, and he will heal up, and the whole lineage will heal up, because the amount of trauma will be lesser in your lineage then. So I use the contact, a mediumship contact, in a healing where I somehow use the contact to the ancestors to heal each other and heal my client. Mm-hmm. And in that way, the epigenetic healing will work not only on the person that I work with to solve a trauma that's transferred, not even yours, and help to improve your contact with those genes that actually expresses the possibilities to mentally feel, think that it's possible to have a happy family life, but also the genes that expresses the feeling of emotionally trust a happy family life, and the physical form in you that actually just have the security, of course I will have that possibility to live a happy family life. So in that way I use the contact to with the ancestors to heal the client and to overcome epigenetic trauma, so epigenetic transferred trauma, but connect with an epigenetic transferred positive emotion or possibilities to succeed.
It goes back to the old discussion between Lamarck and Darwin, because Lamarck said that qualities could be transferred from generation to generation, The example that's always used to poke fun at Lamarck is the giraffe, where he said that they constantly had to stretch their necks, and so that their offspring also stretched their necks. And they all ended up with long necks, where Darwin said, well, no, it has to do with all the ones with short necks dying.
And you can say that I still think that the one that didn't reach the trees did die. But the one with the long neck did survive. So in that way, I'm in that. But I'm more like Lamarck in that way. When we talk about Darwin, it's like the survival of the fittest. Mm-hmm. So it's it's a society where only the best one survives. Mm. And that's actually a problem, because that creates a lot of the pressure and what we see in our society right now is, not right now, but it has been for a long time, is this very big focus on competition and to succeed and to be the best. And that's very much what Darwin actually says with his, but Lamarck and actually also Wallace talks about still a kind of survival of the fittest, but not the fittest in that way, just that the one that's not really so good at surviving dies, but there's a very bigger part that survives. It doesn't mean that you have to be best, you just have to survive. Mm. And that's a much better way to see it, because in that way it's not the same pressure of being the best, it's just being alive. Mm. So in that way I would say I'm a bit of both. Mm. But I'm very much into that the genes transfer different kind of skills, not only physical skills like how we look and how we work with our brains, but also that we have a lot of emotional things that we have transferred. There's a lot of different things that we actually can inherit from our ancestors. That's not only normal physical things, but also how our emotion works, how our mind works, and how we actually experience our life and the problems that we are connected with in our everyday life. Mm. So it's more complicated than just the one or the other.
Is healing past ancestral issues something that everybody can do? I mean, your work as a healer addresses these issues by going into the light and contacting ancestors. What about people who haven't got your degree of sensitivity? How do they go about it?
What I do find is that I have been teaching a lot of people Reiki 1. Mm-hmm. And Reiki 1 is a very simple self-healing practice, and because you are a soul and you're divine, you have always contact to the healing energy and the divine energy. For me it's the same. So every person has a possibility to do self-healing or to heal. It's not everybody that has it in a degree that they should work as a healer, but for yourself to be in contact with the divine and your soul, or with a Reiki 1 where you can learn to heal yourself. That's a very great possibility for everyone. I haven't met one single student that couldn't heal themselves after a Reiki 1. Mm. And Reiki 1 is for me it's like connecting with the light or the life force or the loving energy in the universe. So it's like a ray of light it's like it's connected in anything, in everything. So it's a possibility everybody has. Mm. And in that way, it's not for a few, it's for everyone. But of course, the skills to work in a profession, or not as a professional with healing, to help other people or to be a channel for the healing energy in that level, it's practice and it's skills as well. But to have it for yourself, to do it, to help yourself, to be in contact with yourself, to ask for healing every day, to to get the support or guidance or extra energy to be yourself in your everyday life. I'm very much sure that that's for everybody.
Let's see now. We've talked about 4 planes of existence and epigenetic healing and ancestors and genes. One of the things we haven't talked about are traumas and the body. How do I register if my body has trauma, and what do I do about it?
When I work, a part of this book, Your Soul, Your Life, is talking about releasing trauma. The other part is also talking about retrieval your soul and the potential that you have within your soul and the potential that you have from your lineage. Your soul is, like I talk about it, like your soul is a traveler through different kinds of lives. So it's like the travel of your soul is through a lot of past lives, where you, as we have talked about earlier, gain a lot of knowledge. And sometimes you also make some things that have to be a little corrected when you come down, because there was a lot of trauma there you experienced a trauma, or you did something to other people that was not all right, and when you come back you have to correct it. So in that way there is the karmic direction, but the trauma in your body is more like it could be emotional trauma, it could be mental trauma, like mental beliefs that you have that somehow limit your way of expressing yourself or thinking about yourself. It could be physical trauma where you have tension in your body. So when I work with trauma, I work in a way where I try to find out what is the limitations that inhibits the soul expression and the feeling of the physical aliveness, the mental aliveness, the emotional aliveness in my client.
Okay, we're going to wind up the podcast now. This is an exciting time for you because your book is being published in English and you have lots of interviews, and perhaps the good word will spread to other English-speaking countries, and there's a great demand on your time. How are you dealing with all this?
It's Your Soul, Your Life. The book has been published in Danish 3.5 years ago, and the book really wanted to come into the world and out in the world. So it's much like, again, a trust in the path. The book has its life of its own. I'm a very active person. I have a lot of things to do, and writing a book demands for you to have no other things you do than writing the book. So in that part, it's like it was lying in my system for years before I actually sat down and wrote it. So it's like it has been building up with a lot of readiness to come out in the world, to fly. And then I had 3 weeks in 2000, and I think it was 2020 or something like that. And I was having 3 weeks in Germany, in Berlin, where I sat down and wrote every day. It's more like a channeling of everything that had been in my system for so long. And then I didn't have any more time to do something. But then I wanted to have it as 20 years anniversary for starting working with the spiritual world. And it was also my 50 years birthday. So in 2021, it was published in Danish as a part of my celebration of the 20 years anniversary and my 50 years of birthday. So in that way, the process has been long, but already before it was published in Danish, there was an English translator, a student of mine, that said, if you wanted to, on a time, maybe want to translate it, me and my husband would be very, very pleased to do that. And in that way, I knew the book was written in Berlin, in Germany. And even before it was really published, there was an English translator that wanted to take a good look at it. So the book has presented itself as an international book from the start. And I'm just trying to follow it. So in that way, it's quite interesting. And I thought I was going to publish it myself, but then I sent it into, it was very difficult to publish it internationally yourself. It's like, I couldn't see how to do that. And then my assistant said, I have seen this woman that had been publishing in a publisher called O Books. Try them. And then I just sent in the book and they said, oh yes, that one we really would like to work with. And then they took it. And in that way, it's like, I think a little year ago, they started with that. And then there was a lot of things. So somehow I'm very excited, but it's also a very long process.
When you talk about it, it's almost as if the book has its own life.
Yeah, that's right. I feel it like that. Yeah, but yes, the thing is that the book is about the 20 years of experience that I have, the methods that I have been developing, the things that I have been seeing with working with the spiritual world, and also the connection with with what I know from biology and what I know from trauma treatments. So it's a development of these methods and how I have been adapted it into a self-healing process. So when you read the book, it's possible for you to follow the healing meditations. It's possible for you to read the chapters that are connected with what somehow draws you. So it could be inner child work, it could be epigenetic healing, it could be normal trauma work. It could be the problems with relations where you sense people too much and you have to release other people's energy from your system, or to take responsibility for your own energy that you have been lying out in the other people's system. So the book somehow represents over 20 years of work. But I still feel it's much more like a calling for more light in the world, and the book is a part of that.
Yeah, and that's also something quite different in this book. It differs from many other books in this genre. Even though your portrait is on the front page, there's not actually all that much about you. There are some examples from your own life, but I suppose it's aptly named Your Soul, Your Life. It's not so much about you.
No, it's about the reader and the reader's soul and their lives. And it's, again, as a channel, I'm not so much focusing on myself. It's like I'm a channel for the divine, and I'm not that a person. I think it's much more of interest what the divine can do, what the spirit world can do for you, and what you can do for the spirit world.
Okay, so in that sense, the book does have its own life. Well, I usually end these podcasts with good advice. Let's see now. I'm a new reader, and I just bought your book, and I'm looking forward to getting started. How should I tackle the book? Should I read it from one end to the other, or should I browse in it? What is your good advice?
What I have heard from people reading it, of course it's only been sold in Denmark till now, but there's a lot of people in Denmark that have been reading it, and it's very different how they respond to the book. Some of them just read a chapter at a time and then follow the process that comes into development. So it's like many read the book and it puts them into a personal process or a spiritual process. A lot of thoughts about who they are and what's affecting their lives and how they can do better in life and the help to do that and the connection with the spirit world. So many people just have it, take one chapter at a time in a slow pace. Others just read it all straight away, follow there is a lot of exercises, and there is also a lot of healing meditations that you can listen to on my website. So people use it in that way. So they listen to the healing meditations that help them to inner child work or epigenetic work or just to ground themselves. So it could be a workbook that's a very active part of your everyday life. But it could also be that some talks about they just lie on the next to themselves at the bed at night at the bed table, and then just open the book and look what's there today. So they use it somehow to continue their development process. So it's other people talk about it as because it's also a lot of what you can say, if you're a healer or you work as a professional with trauma or as some kind of other line of a field of line, other field, but where this connection between the divine and the healing process, your client and the divine, they use this as a kind of professional book for helping them to get inspiration to how to work with clients, because the book is built up with some of my own stories, as you say, a lot of methods and theory, and then a lot of case stories with my students or clients. So in that way, it's also built up like a book that you can use as a professional. So it's for yourself. If you're just a new reader to the spiritual world, you can use it for your self-healing, but you can also use it as a book within your own field to help you to get better to your field.
Well, that wraps it up nicely. Well, before closing, Marzcia, if you rummage around in your brain, is there anything that you think we should finish off with?
Yes, it should be really, again, this deeper level of trust your own contact with your soul and the calling your soul has, and follow that path. Because when you live in accordance with your soul, it's much more living energy than the survival mode with fear and anger and everything like that. And the world really needs us to take responsibility of our own stuff, so we will not affect the world with more bad stuff, but with more good stuff. And your soul is really the good stuff.
Really the good stuff. That's a good place to end. Thank you very much, Marzcia, and I hope that people listening to this podcast will be inspired to go out and buy the book. It's very good, I promise you. And thank you for listening, and thank you for Marzcia for being here.
Thank you very much, Paul. It has been a pleasure, and thank you for your help.
You're welcome. You can listen to this podcast and other podcasts on www.healinghelp.dk, and you can also find this podcast on Marzcia's website. Thank you and goodbye.